some fundamental things are falling short. We got to keep a lid on it. If you don't keep a lid on it in the NFL, man, you don't give yourself a chance to play. We didn't do that, and I thought it was a domino effect from there on. I thought our eyes weren't in the right place defensively, and it's capable of happening when you're not keeping a lid on it. You got to keep a lid on it.
Hi everybody, welcome to the Extra Point presented by Microsoft Surface. I'm Missi Matthews. The final in Philadelphia on Sunday, 35-13. The Steelers now sit at 2-6. We're going to break down what went desperately wrong. Let's welcome in our panelists here today, Dale Lolley of Steelers.com and SNR. Also Mike Prisuta of the DVE Morning Show and Steelers.com, and Matt Williamson of Steelers.com and SNR as well. Dale, since you were first in the box, we're going to let you go first. How do you kind of put your finger on what this means for the Steelers as they head into their bye week?
Well, it means they're 2-6, and well, that's kind of, you know, when Kenny Pickett got inserted into the lineup, this is kind of what people feared would happen with this. They did get a win over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but you know, the season had kind of started to slip away from it at that point. And I want to remind people that the teams against which Pickett has started, 21-9. So you know, the expectation. I understand that everybody expects a win each week, and this is the Pittsburgh Steelers, and that's what the expectation is. But they played some pretty good teams. They're not one of those right now. They're in a bad spot, but I don't think that they're awful. I don't think that they're the worst team in the league. I think this is something that's going to continue to build over the course of the season, and with such a young offense, just, you know, the expectation was that there would be some struggles with that. To Mike Tomlin's point that he just said, you didn't expect the defense to have some of the struggles they've had.
Mike, in terms of the defense, we heard from Cam Hayward, one of the team's captains. He talked about the dysfunction and what they're putting on the field. How do you sum up their performance yesterday?
Dysfunctional does a pretty good job. You know, it looked like after what happened in Buffalo that they had really cleaned things up against Tampa Bay and Miami. And one of the narratives going into this past Philadelphia game was that they had just played an RPO team in Miami and they would be better for it going against another RPO team in Philadelphia. To me, a lot of stuff happened yesterday, a lot of things talked about. The biggest mismatch on the field was a tie. The Eagles receivers against the Steelers corners and the Steelers receivers against the Eagles corners. Defensively, they were in position to make plays. I don't think it's schematics. It was similar to the Buffalo game in a lot of regards. They had the coverage, they just did not make the plays. And the thing that still got me scratching my head was the first touchdown. Minka Fitzpatrick adamant after the game that he should have not only made an interception on that play, but had a good return out of it and changed the whole dynamic of the way the game started. It was reminiscent to me of the 62-yard touchdown in Buffalo when Gabe Davis was able to take the ball out of his arms. Minka Fitzpatrick's a great player. He's an all-pro. He's one of the best Steelers players. You can see him reacting there. He's as surprised as anybody that ended up a touchdown for the Eagles. You know, if he's not going to be one of their best players, this is the kind of thing that can happen when you don't have T.J. Watt.
Matt, it wasn't just that one after that. You know, the Eagles, A.J. Brown, Jalen Hurts, they just kept rolling. Are you alarmed at the big plays the defense is continuing to give up, as to Mike's point, where they cleaned things up after that Buffalo game?
A little, and I think the coaching staff has done a good job of putting the defensive backs in places to make plays. We saw all the dropped interceptions against Miami. That's good coaching, you know, getting these guys where they make plays. I know Dale wrote today about playmakers need to make plays, and they didn't in this game. That's 100% true. Minka's as big a culprit as any. I think you have to tip your cap to the opponent. I mean, A.J. Brown's a rare player. They bundled up Tyreek Hill, who's lighting the league on fire right now. And you know, the numbers aren't great, and the big plays allowed are obviously a problem. I think the lack of pass rush worries me more. But it's not an easy fix. I mean, just overall, the way this team's constructed, you can't have self-inflicted wounds. You can't drop interceptions. You can't make the play Minka did, because that could have been a gift. And you can't turn down gifts the way that this team's constructed.
Dale, the Steelers didn't have Larry Ogunjobi, and we saw what him and Cam Hayward have been able to do the past couple of games. How much do you attribute to what was happening or not happening up front to the big plays in the back end?
Well, I think to Matt and Mike's point, a pass rush would make a big difference, especially when the opposing team is hitting big plays on you. And I think not having Ogunjobi there, not having T.J. Watt there makes a big difference. Presumably they're going to get maybe both of those guys back here coming out of the bye week. So we haven't seen the Steelers' defense as it was envisioned going into training camp, going into the regular season. We saw what it did in that first game against the Cincinnati Bengals when they had a pass rush. It's just too easy when it's just one or two guys who are consistently getting pressure to kind of, if you're the opposing team, to kind of alleviate those issues. You can chip Alex Highsmith all day. You can double team Cam Hayward. So other guys need to get home, and they did a few times yesterday, but they didn't affect the game enough. And the Eagles were just, it was bombs away, and the read option stuff. They didn't do a lot of it because they were just throwing the football down the field.
Yeah, to your point on the rush, Dale, I think that second touchdown, the first one that Ahkello Witherspoon got victimized on, that was a 6-man blitz against a 7-man protection. So they had it maxed up, and they knew where they wanted to go with the ball. I don't know if Witherspoon struggled because he hadn't played in a while, I think since the Cleveland game. He's been pretty reliable, not great, but pretty solid.
And it was a great throw, Mike.
Yesterday's performance was such that he got taken out at halftime. It does come down to one-on-one plays on a lot of occasions, and the Steelers just weren't able to make those splash plays on either side of the ball. And the other thing about the pass rush is it might not make teams as comfortable calling those type of plays if they're worried about the rush. Maybe if you get home once early in the game, they don't go back to it as often. Maybe if you can get a sack, strip, fumble, that can change the dynamic of the game right there. But a lot of things conspiring against the Steelers in that game, and they just were not up to the task. Dale, you mentioned the record of the teams that Pickett's played against. Buffalo and Philly on the road, and that might be the Super Bowl.
Yeah, they're the best two teams in the league. I mean, Kansas City has somewhat of an argument, but they're destroying Aaron Rodgers. They're destroying everyone they play against. I think they're far and away the two hardest teams to play in the league. It does get easier. It's not pretty what the Steelers are putting out there. But to your guys' point about attacking through the air and not fearing the pass rush, when this game was in the balance, the first 28 minutes of the game, early downs, they threw 16 passes against only 3 runs. They clearly game planned to attack the Steelers down the field, didn't fear the pass rush, and they better get used to that. I mean, that's how every team's going to come out attacking these guys, and maybe Watt can change that, but the Eagles were very, very effective, and there were a lot of 50-50 balls that didn't go the Steelers' way.
Well, Matt, let me ask you this. Other than hoping you get T.J. Watt and Larry Ogunjobi back into the lineup following the bye, what can the Steelers work on to not put out dysfunction, as Cam said?
Communication. I mean, to be very honest, I was praising the defensive game plans, the execution against Tampa and Miami, too, well, especially Miami. Difficult teams to play against with top-notch receivers as well. So I think you go back and look at those games and say, look how well we passed guys off and communicated on the back end. And guys to me like Edmonds and Bush are fine. They're not liabilities out there. So there's plenty of good tape and quality scheme to look back on this year and say that can be our bread and butter. And if we can get some more splash on that side of the ball, which I don't think is asking too much considering, some of the star power that they do have, that side of the ball should be okay.
All right, guys, we have much more to talk about. The Steelers losing to the Eagles in Philadelphia on Sunday. When we return, we're going to talk about Kenny Pickett and the Steelers offense, what they need to do coming out of the bye week, failing to score more than 13 points for the 3rd time in just 4 games. We'll break that down for you and much more on the Extra Point presented by Microsoft Surface.
Yeah, you're on the field for 14 plays. You're leaving yourself open to make mistakes, whether that's physically, mentally. some things happen like that. So we need more explosive plays. We had opportunities today and, didn't connect on some. It's a dual-edged sword. It's good to stay on the field and control the football and, chew some clock up, but we got to finish with points. And if we're not getting points, then it's really not, doing us any good.
Welcome back to the Extra Point presented by Microsoft Surface. Dale, you mentioned a little bit earlier in the show just the record that Kenny Pickett, taking over as the Steelers starting quarterback, has faced in terms of teams. They now head into the bye week. Things do get a little bit easier in terms of the strength of schedule, but still this offense able to move the ball. We even saw it in Miami, a game that everybody on both sides of the ball thought they could have won. Then you go to Philly and this just felt like it got away very quickly and they were never able to get it back.
It did, and Philly's pass rush is good. It's especially good at home, and the Steelers haven't won there since 1965. I mean, I've been covering this team for 30 years. Mike's been even longer than that, and we've never seen the Steelers win in Philadelphia. So they had the odds were stacked against them to begin with heading into that game, but the playmakers need to make plays, and I thought that when you look at this game. A.J. Brown goes out and catches 3 touchdown passes in this game. He's their star receiver. The Steelers receiver group as a whole has 2 touchdowns this season. That to me, stands out. They have to do a better job of getting some of these chunk plays. We saw a couple in this game. One to Freiermuth, one to Claypool, both over the middle. It can't just be throw the ball down the sideline and hope that the guy comes down with the football. How about a catch and run? Deontay Johnson in the first 3 or 4 years of his career, what was this, year 4 now? First 3 years of his career was very adept at taking an 8-yard slant and turning it into a 20-yard gain. That's what he does, and we haven't seen that at all this year. We haven't seen that throw to the middle of the field as much in those kind of situations. Now, whether that's because I do believe they're running those routes, but they're just not throwing those routes in many cases, whether they're covered up or something else is there. You have to take some chances in some of those situations, and it's just not happening right now for the Steelers. They're the only team in the league who has not scored a touchdown from outside the 20. We're halfway through the season.
I thought they were actually a little more aggressive yesterday than they've been. I think one of the things I've thought they've had available to them all year, more often than not, is one-on-one with George Pickens, but they tried it about 4 times, and it never worked for one reason or another. It's astounding. Looked like there was another miscommunication with Deontay Johnson on a red zone play where Pickett threw it to the back corner of the end zone, and Johnson broke it off on what looked like a double move. He got cut off by, I think it was Bradbury, the cornerback, James Bradbury. They have to keep trying this stuff, but to me, the bigger issue is Najee Harris. I'm really dumbfounded as to why they haven't been more effective running the ball, and dumbfounded as to what he looks like this year versus what he looked like last year. I don't think it's because he's not supremely talented. I don't think it's because he's not working hard enough. I don't think it's because he doesn't care enough. To me, job one in the bye is figure out how to get Najee Harris going, figure out how to get the ground game going, and then see what the passing game looks like if you have that as an option.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with the run game. I mean, you need some sort of crutch or something to lean on for this rookie quarterback, and the run game is just not close to being up to standard. I thought this was the worst game the line played as a whole, but overall, I think they've been somewhat of a success story. I need to go watch the All-22, and you guys may have seen this better from your guys' vantage point, but I didn't see a lot of separation from Pickens in this game. I think this could be a lesson of going up against the Slays and Bradburys of the world and the attention you're going to get as a number 1 receiver, which I very much think he is and will be. But there's two things that I don't say worry me, but are very crucial right now, and it revolves around the rookie quarterback, is red zone and between 10 and 20 yards downfield. Those are the 2 most difficult places for any quarterback to attack. I mean, you have 22 big, fast human beings in a very confined red zone area, or that 10 to 20 yard area where there's a lot of damage that can be done in a negative manner. You got to feather passes. Sometimes you have to gun them. And right now, Pickett, as he should, as all rookies do, is not getting it done in the red zone and in that intermediate area.
Guys, the penalties, we have to mention those specifically when they come to offense. Dale, at one point during a TV timeout, one of the officials came over to the Steelers O-line with their offensive line coach, Pat Meyer, and was showing them, guys, the crown of your head has to be on my hip or it is an illegal formation. How and when do they clean these up? Because that's also, holding this offense back from trying to grow and become whatever it will become at some point.
Yeah, and that's an issue, Missy. We've seen that crop up over the years, where especially on the road, the offensive linemen try to get just a little bit more out on the edge to against guys who are trying to get upfield quickly, and so you walk that line to where you can think you can get to without getting called on that. Again, a fine line. Some crews call it, some don't. Obviously, yesterday's crews did. But not all of the pre-snap penalties in those situations, if an offensive lineman is quote unquote not lined up properly or whatever, or if they get the illegal formation call, sometimes it's a wide receiver or a tight end not covering them up or covering them up, things of that nature. It's those little things, the minutia of the game that are hurting the Steelers right now. And again, they overcame some of that. The one drive, the one touchdown drive they did have yesterday was I think a 15-play drive where they overcame a couple of those, an illegal formation play, a couple of penalties on that one. But it's just too hard when you're not getting those chunk plays. But you have to pay attention to the minutia. That's why the coaches are out there harping on this stuff. And I know that they do this. I know they go over these things with these guys. But it's they're young players, and I don't know that they often or always on their P's and Q's in terms of what they need to do to succeed in this league. Again, not to pick on George Pickens here, but that's a good, yesterday's a good learning tool for a guy like him. You're going up against two very good defensive backs in Bradbury and Slay. And I thought that they were allowed to get away with a lot of clutching and grabbing. But as a receiver, you have to realize that and find ways to win against that. And so, again, it comes down to that minutia of understanding where you're supposed to line up, how far they're going to allow you to line up. And once it gets called once, don't do it again. That's just the reality of it.
All right.
Yeah, I think the degree to which that's an issue was made pretty clear by Kenny Pickett. He complained about that multiple times, and I thought he had a good point. He says he's asked where they go to start fixing things, and he said the playbook. We got to get on our details. We got to know what we're doing. Ineligible man downfield. That was particularly costly already to the Steelers. It was a Cleveland game, if I'm remembering correctly, and it seems to be a league-wide emphasis. Just about every game I watch has an illegal man downfield penalty. Space awareness, know where you are on the field, know what you can and cannot do on a certain play. Dale's absolutely right. They can't afford to be giving away 5 yards here, 10 yards there. It's hard enough as it is. And these are things that it surprises me that there are issues after 8 games.
Yeah, I mean, you can't have an illegal formation on a kickoff. You can't kick a kickoff out of bounds. You can't. I mean, Dale kind of mentioned this. Like, teams are all of a sudden the Steelers' time possession is jumping through the roof because they have these 14 play drives that are kind of empty calories. That sure, we'll give you 2-3 yards. You can move the chains. You can get more first downs. That looks swell on paper, but in the meantime, there's no meat and potatoes to it all. I mean, they're just empty calories. And asking a quarterback in his 3rd or 4th or 5th, ever start to not screw something up with a holding penalty, a misread, a sack, a fumble, whatever, is a really difficult recipe, especially with all the mistakes they're making.
Mike, you referenced Kenny Pickett and what he said after the game. We had that queued up, so let's take a listen to Pickett on penalties.
Not detailed, not detailed. Guys need to know what they're doing. We need to study more. I don't think we study enough as a group. There's way too many, penalties and stuff like that, which, we can control. It's all mental. So for that to happen, there's really no excuse for that. So, we have to figure that out and get it right.
Dale, something.
I mean, those are strong words from a guy who's not been doing this for very long. I think it shows what kind of leader Kenny Pickett can be, and he certainly included himself among the people who have to pick it up. He's obviously got to play better. He's learning as he goes here. But the little detail stuff, the controllables, as he just said, there's no excuse for not having that stuff buttoned down.
Well, and it sounds like, Dale, that's probably something during this bye week they can spend some time doing as they have extra time to prepare for their next game.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's going to be an emphasis with the coaching staff. I know pre-snap penalties drive Mike Tomlin nuts. You're going to have holding penalties. You're going to have pass interference penalties, things of that nature, the physical mistakes that happen in a football game. But you can't beat yourself mentally, and that's what's happening right now to a certain degree with this Steeler team. I know Pickett took a delay of game yesterday. You got to get those snaps off. You got to understand the situation, and it's again not always easy against a good team in their building. Those are the things that happen in those situations. That's why you see the false start meter in Seattle or Kansas City, places like that. But you can't beat yourself by lining up improperly or by doing the little things that the Steelers are doing wrong right now.
All right, guys, they are heading into their bye week. Best piece of advice you could give the Steelers to try to turn it around for the second half of the season? Mike, we'll start with you.
Get Najee Harris figured out. Get him going. I know there's a great back in there. Shouldn't be this hard. Find out why it is and fix it.
Matt?
They got throttled by what I think are the two best teams in the league on the road. Use those as learning experiences. I would go back and try to get in the brains of the Bills and Eagles coaching staffs and say, what can we learn from the two best organizations in the league right now? It didn't go well, but we had the opportunity to play the best. And can we learn from that and figure out how they see us?
Dale?
Keep chopping wood. I mean, you just have to keep working at it. Again, I do think that the schedule gets easier down the road. We saw in 2013, the Steelers started the season much like this, 2-6. They were 0-4, got to 2-6. They went 6-2 in the second half of the season and just missed the playoffs. I'm not saying that's going to happen here, but I am saying that you can't give up on a season because you're professionals. You have to keep working at it. You have to try to use this, even if you don't make the postseason, use this as a springboard for 2023.
All right, guys, thanks so much for your time today, and thanks to everybody for watching the Extra Point presented by Microsoft Surface. Enjoy the bye week, and we'll see you guys in a few weeks.